Hello everybody, it's the old bear from the Old Bear's Den of Bigfoot. And this is the Saturday before New Year's. And I was informed this past week of an encounter out of North Carolina near Asheville off from I-26 and the big mountain that runs up on I-26. I would suggest that if you live in that area, arm yourself. From what I was told, this young man decided the day after Christmas he was off work. He had to work Christmas night. So he had Thursday and Friday off. Had to go back to work Saturday. So Thursday, he thought as a Christmas gift to himself, he was going to go winter hiking. Sometimes that's a good thing. In this case, it's a bad thing. And when he went hiking, he started out right after daylight from his house down. He lives down near Asheville. And he drove up to the mountain. And there's evidently, I've seen the trail just below the top of the mountain off the interstate. And it's a path, looks like a deer path, that walks up and goes to the top of that hill. Well, it's a mountain. And it goes out along the top of that ridge. It goes down, and you can look down Asheville from there. Now, when he got there, he went down to the rest area that's off the top of the mountain and parked at it. And he hiked back up along the interstate, way off the road, back up another path that he knew of, and hit the trail that went out on that long ridge mountainside. And he said there's some outstanding views down through there, and he takes pictures. Well, that was the only thing he was armed with was a camera, which ain't the smartest thing. There are bears that live there. This time of year, they're typically in. They're denned up. Well, he was walking out through there, and he got to the first place he always takes a picture of, because it's always a little bit different every time he goes there. You know, in time of day, shadows, and all that. He was looking down on top of Asheville. Asheville's not a little city. It's a decent-sized city. And he could see I-40. He could see I-26 from there. He could see the confluence of I-26 and I-40, because I-40 runs east to west and I-26 runs north and south. It's the way it's supposed to be on the interstates. Anyway, he got there. He took 4 or 5 pictures, he said. He's got a Canon digital camera. And he's got a telephoto lens, and he takes pictures. He likes throwing pictures. It's his pastime. You have to excuse me. I got a bad habit. And my wife keeps letting me do it, so Mrs. Bear, it's your fault too. Just saying.
Okay, don't ask me to stop and get you
Okay.
stuff anymore.
I'll shut up. Anyways, um, he's there taking in the scenery. He's taking video or pictures of it, and the camera can do video. And he looks approximately 200 yards below him, and there's like a grassy field. It's kind of the orchard grass has gotten real tall in it, and it's kind of wet down in there. He's been down in there before, and he saw the grass moving, and something stood up. And by this time, he's already shut his camera off because he has to shut it off. If he doesn't, it burns the batteries up pretty quick. And he done put it away in its carrying case in his backpack. And he was actually taking a drink of water, and when he happened to look down there, in between gulps of water, and he looked down there, and the grass was moving around back and forth, like something was in it, like maybe deer were passing through it or something of that nature. But it stood up. It must have been laying in there. He said he guesses this thing was twice as tall as the grass, and grass is about 4 foot tall in there. And so it's probably around 7, 8 foot tall range. Coal black. And he said, I never believed in Bigfoot until that moment. And he said, I jerked my backpack off and unzipped it real quick and got the camera case out and looked up, and this thing was gone. Didn't see it nowhere. And he said it wasn't a bear. He said he knows the difference between a bear and what this thing was. It was on 2 feet, clearly on 2 feet, had long arms, and had a big, broad shoulders, chest, and the head kind of had a cone in it. A sagittal crest is what science calls it. And he said this was no bear. He said it didn't have a snout. It didn't have the brown nose that a bear does. It had a dark colored face. He wasn't close enough to see a lot of detail in the face, but he said it was upright, and it was no bear. So at that point, he's like, well, it's gone. I ain't going to get no pictures of it. I can't prove what I saw. And he decided he was going to walk out that mountain range a little farther to another scenic spot. And he was going to take pictures because you can see almost down to where the gorge starts on I-40 going towards Tennessee. And he said it's about 1.5 miles from the first place that he always stops. So he kind of fast walks down there thinking maybe he can get ahead of this thing. Maybe this thing will cross there. And he gets down there and he's got his camera out and he's ready, to take a picture of this creature. And he's standing there and he's concentrating on that place, and he's looking and he's looking, and he's got his camera held right underneath his chin. And it's on, and he's holding it in a manner where all you got to do is move his finger and start taking a picture. So at that point, he sees a white-tailed deer walk out in the clearing. And from what he knows about Bigfoot, which isn't very much, he knows that if whitetails are there, it's probably not around there because whitetail can be a food source for a Bigfoot. So he gets ready, he puts his camera away, and as soon as he puts his camera away, and he's knelt down, and he's putting the camera in the case, and he's putting the case back in his backpack, and he grabs another water out. He drinks about half of it, closes it up, put it back in his he carries 4 waters with him because he usually takes a hike of 2 to 5 miles. It just depends. And usually when he drinks 2 bottles, he turns around because he's only got 3 or 4 left. And hike out is pretty strenuous. It's uphill.
Yeah.
So he turns around. He's bent down. He's facing out the ridgeline. And he's thinking, well, I lucked out. I got to see one at least. You have to excuse me. I got still some bronchitis going on. Ugh. Anyways, he's knelt down and he starts zipping up his backpack. He holds one side closed and zips it and then zips the other one back. And he grabbed the backpack by the arm straps and swung it up and around, and he stood up with it on his back. And he turned around, and when he turned around at about 50 or 60 feet, he was staring at that big black figure that he had saw a mile and a half out the ridge from where he came. Somehow or another, that creature climbed 300 or 400 feet in elevation, and ended up behind him without him even hearing it. So this thing is between him and his vehicle. And he's thinking in his head, I got to get out of here. This thing come behind me for some reason. It's following me. And he starts down off the side of the mountain. Now, in order to get back to his car, he would have had to went down that 400 or 500 feet, 300 or 400 feet, something like that, in elevation, and hit that big flat and run out that flat through the woods, hopefully getting past this creature. And, well, as soon as he started over the hill, this thing come down off the hill after him. It was actually going to end up cutting him off because it was coming down the hill and he was coming straight down, and it was coming at an angle, and it was trying to position itself between him and his escape. So at that point, the young man he's got a knife with him. Not much of a knife, but he's got a knife. And he stops, picks up a big stick, and breaks the stick to where it's something he can jab this creature with if it came close to him. And the creature stopped when he did, and it's standing there looking at him. He said it was standing there looking at him. It would shift its weight and look at him again, and then it shift its weight and watch him, and it just kept kind of doing the back and forth kind of slow. Said it was staring at him, and said it felt like it was drilling holes through his chest. So he takes off running again, and he's got this stick in his hand, and he's kind of half using it to keep him upright because it's pretty steep. From what he was telling me, it's pretty steep ground. And he was doing everything he could to get away from this thing. Well, he, somehow or another, this creature either stopped and let him go past, or he outran it, which I don't believe that he could. Even downhill, I don't think he can do that downhill because they got legs like we do, and they can run through the woods better than we can. And at that point, he starts out that big flat, and this thing is just kind of not running after him, kind of like a slow lope. He said, but the thing looks so graceful, loping through the woods. It would take a step, and it would be 3 of his steps. And he knew the thing was catching him. And he ducked through some briars. And he ran into them just wide open, fast as he could run, and ran through them. Well, that creature didn't do that. It stopped and went around them. He said it tore his jeans, tore his shirt up, his coat that he had on. He even took the coat off after that point because there was no use in it because he was getting hot running. And he ran as far as he could. I think about a mile is what he said. And he's not too far. He's probably another 3/4 of a mile to a mile from his vehicle, from the rest area. And the trail that he was on, he knew because he'd walked that before. It goes right above the rest area, and there's a place on the side of the hill that is slipped that you can jump down and ride the slip down on your butt and get into the rest area where there's people. By the time he had to take a break. He took his coat off, and it was ripped apart, and the stuffing was coming out of it. And at that point, he jerked his backpack off. Now, he's on the other side of these briars, and it takes quite a bit to get up the hill and around these briars because they pretty much stretch the whole flat in that area. So the Bigfoot creature had to go up and around. And then it had to go up the hill, out the hill, then back down. And to even get close to him, he still would have been 50 yards away from it. And for some odd reason, the man thought he needed to drink water. That's not my preference, but I would have kept running, or at least tried to put as much room as I could between me and it. And he grabbed his backpack, and when he grabbed the backpack, he just took it and jerked a zipper open, stuck his hand in and grabbed a water bottle and took a drink and took off running holding the water bottle. And he put the lid back on and took off running. And when he took off running, this thing had already come down and it was within 50 yards of him at the other end of the briar patch. So he's running, and this thing's just kind of loping along. Like, you just keep moving, buddy. Don't stop. If you do, I'm going to catch you. And he's just kind of loping behind him, in that smooth motion that they do. At that point, he gets to the slide or the slip that goes down down next to the rest area. By this time, it's getting late in the afternoon, and it's starting to get dark because that rest area is back in like a little bowl-like area off the interstate, because when you come down the mountain, it turns off and it goes up, and then you go into the rest area for big trucks, and it goes around to where the passenger vehicles can split off, and their entrance meets up with the entrance back on the interstate. And he slides down that slide. He gets to that rest area, and he's running through the parking lot. And he said there was a couple of tractor trailers in there, but they had their curtains closed. And he couldn't see the front of the rest area. When he came around, there was a couple of cars in there. And he got into his car. Now, he turned around at one point, and this thing wasn't behind him anymore. It just shoved him out of where he was at. And once he got down there to his car, he went in to go clean himself up because he had scratches on his arms from those briars and on his face and everything. And he went in and I guess one of the maintenance people saw him, and they come on and said, "Do you need help?" He said, "You're not going to believe it, but there's something chasing me." And he was telling him what it was. And the guy looked at him and kind of laughed, said, "Yeah, those things are real." Blew him off. And the guy went in the bathroom, cleaned himself up as best he could. Come back outside, got in his car, and took off. Now, he went and told some buddies of his. Here's where the bad part starts. They wanted to see this thing, and they talked him into going back up there on Friday. Now, he went back up there and showed them where he saw it, and he said, "This is as far as I'm going. I'm not going any further." Now, he didn't take him to where it was behind him, and he had to run off the hill and down and across and down the big mountainside down into the rest area. So he told me, "This is as far as I'm going." He turned around. One of the other guys was a little timid, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to go back with him and make sure he's okay." Well, they start back out the trail, and they hear their two other buddies screaming. And they come flying up this path and fly past them going, "Bigfoot, Bigfoot." Well, they're running at a dead run. And they take off running behind them. And the timid guy tripped and fell. And the other guy, the guy that had seen it the day before, stopped and turned around, screamed at his buddies and said, "Hey, he needs help. He fell." He didn't hear him. So he went back to help his buddy, and his buddy had twisted his ankle. And on the way out, after he got his buddy on his feet, they heard the footsteps coming from this creature. Sorry, guys. This bronchitis is kicking my butt certain times of the day, and this happens to be one of them. And they get out of there. They get sticks thrown at them a couple of times. They had some rocks thrown at them. But he never aimed to hit them. He threw them to where they would land off the side of the hill and roll down the hill and scare the daylights out of them. So they got back to the vehicle. And the two buddies that he was with, they drove a car, and the guy that he was helping was going to get in the car with him because it was close. And the other two guys were sitting in the truck with the truck running, and they had it on the floor. They didn't even put it in gear. They were sitting there, and I'm going nowhere. And because they were scared. And he got in the car, and he put in gear, and he took off. Well, his other buddies, evidently, whenever he took off, they took his foot off the gas, put in gear, and they took off down the road behind him. They got down that first big part of the mountain. Then it goes back up and then down again into Asheville. Well, by the time they hit the part that goes down and it goes around a little bit to the left and then it goes straight, pretty much straight back up, they had a state trooper behind them with lights on and everything. They were doing probably between 80 and 90 miles an hour. And they got stopped on top of the hill on the other side, and the trooper come up and said, "All right, guys, why are you speeding? First off, you better have a good reason for driving that fast." And the guy said, "Bigfoot was chasing us. We ran out and got away from Bigfoot." And the trooper looked at him and went, "Okay. How much have you had to drink?" He said, "We didn't drink anything. We got chased by Bigfoot. I'm not lying to you." Well, the trooper's kind of like, he goes back to the other vehicle, and them guys are sitting there white. One of them had evidently wet himself. I think it was the passenger, and the driver had. It was a bad stench coming from the car, from the pickup. And the trooper's like, said he was watching the trooper in his side mirror, and the trooper went like this, said, "Just roll your window up. Just get out of here." And hollered at him and said, "Y'all can go." And they took off. Well, they went to the one guy's house, the guy that had soiled his pants, and he took a shower, and he had some liquor there. Well, they drank the liquor. Everybody got pretty well drunk. And somebody passed out, and they had nightmares about this Bigfoot. So that was the last that he went hiking. He hasn't hiked since then, which it's only been a week. And a week and a couple of days. And he had an encounter that scared the living daylights out of him and three of his buddies. And, well, he's sworn off from going hiking ever again. Doesn't want to do that. He's afraid he'll see another one of these creatures. And since Friday, he's had very little sleep because he's having nightmares every night. This thing's catching him, and it's ripping him apart. It's beating him to death with the rocks, tree limbs, everything that he can think of, his mind, his subconscious can think of. And he wakes up after an hour or two of sleep, and he can't get back to sleep because he's so scared. And I talked to him for quite a bit. And this is going to be one of those cases where I'm not going to North Carolina unless I'm going down that way for work. And I'm going to help him via the phone. I asked him if he'd want to come on a live show. He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to talk about it. But he will talk with me. And he has said that the next phone conversation that his three buddies will be there with him and they can tell what they saw. And because his buddies won't even talk about the one of the two that decided they were going to be brave guys and go out the path and confront this creature. So anyways, 4 people saw a Bigfoot down there near, I think it's called Mount Mitchell, out of Asheville on I-26. And it makes me kind of wonder if maybe that Bigfoot was down in the gorge when all that Hurricane Helene did all that flooding and everything, and it got pushed out because of the weather. So it makes you kind of wonder. But I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you all have a very happy new year. And we pray that God will bless you each and every day. And from Mrs. Bear and Mr. Bear, Old Bear, we hope and pray that you are blessed each and every day. And my wife may have something to add, so we're going to let her add something.
And I hope and pray everybody has a very blessed, happy new year. Love you guys.
All right. We'll see y'all later. Y'all have a blessed one. Bye-bye.